Don't call it a comeback is essentially the message we've been given from OnePlus when it came to launching this OnePlus Nord. This isn't the company returning to making cheap phones. That's not how it sees it, or at least that's not how they portray it. Instead, this is their first non-flagship phone. And that essentially means it's the first OnePlus phone that doesn't have a Snapdragon 800 chip inside. I'm Cam Bunton from Pocket-lint, and this is our review of the OnePlus Nord. If you do like this video, by the time you get to the end of it, please do hit that like and subscribe. It helps us a lot. And it means you won't miss any of our other videos. So let's dive in. Now, it's in design where you see some first signs of compromise, but the right kind. It's got glass on the front and the back for that premium feel, but a plastic frame and a completely flat front. That gives it a bit of a chunky feel in hand, but it doesn't feel weak, and those buttons have a nice solid clicky feel to them. It's glossy glass, so that means it slips off things quite easily and attracts fingerprints, but it looks ace in this marble blue colour. We're really big fans of that. As for the front, OnePlus went with a practical approach. Rather than have the curved glass on the display, the panel is completely flat, virtually all the way to the edges. It keeps costs down this way and ensures there's no risk of any distortion or accidental touches as you might find with curved screens. The only real interruption is the dual cutout for the selfie cameras. Now, there's no denying it's quite a big phone. It's roughly the same thickness as an iPhone 11, but it's taller and narrower than Apple's popular smartphone. With that said, it's not hugely uncomfortable to hold and use. We've quickly got used to its dimensions and the weight sitting in our palm, even with one of OnePlus's cases snapped onto the back. Now, as for that display, how good it looks very much depends on how close it is to your eyes. Hold it at arm's length and Netflix shows like Our Planet looks superb with great balance of highlights, shadows, detail and colour. But it's when you bring it slightly closer and you start to see flaws and notice a little roughness around the edges. Now, being ever so slightly critical, we did notice that when looking at white screens, if you peer at it from an angle, you sort of get this subtle rainbow shift that goes between green and pink across the screen. Look at any other screen and you don't really notice it. And the Full HD panel obviously isn't as pin sharp as Quad HD would be, but it's still sharp enough. Its biggest draw is the 90Hz refresh rate, which when combined with a boatload of RAM, optimized software and the Snapdragon 765 processor, ensures you get fast, smooth animations and really speedy performance overall. Now, there was the odd time where it took a couple of seconds to load really sharp images during games. These were the particularly graphically intense games. But once it was there, it was really reliable and smooth the whole time. There was no stutter and no lag, it was just speedy and smooth all the way. In that way, it does feel like a flagship phone, even if it hasn't got the flagship processor inside it. Now, similarly, the 4115 mAh battery can easily get through a day. We did manage to completely drain it once on one day, and that was only when we played about 6 hours of Mario Kart and Scrabble Go. Most days, with a couple of hours of gaming, we got to bed with around 40% left over. And that warp charge adapter means you can get another day's worth of power just from plugging it in for 30 minutes. Now, for the cameras, there's 4 of them, but there really doesn't need to be. For a brand that preaches never settle, we'd rather see fewer, better quality cameras than just have a quad camera system for the sake of it. That would show it wasn't just following the pack, because 2 of these have questionable quality and usefulness. The primary sensor is exactly the same as the one that's on the OnePlus 8. It's a Sony sensor and the camera features both optical image stabilization and electronic image stabilization. And that ensures your stills and your video are shake-free and smooth. And for the most part, this primary camera is actually good. With good light, it can take lovely sharp images with great color and dynamic range. Now, the ultra-wide one seems to lose some of that detail and adds in some noise if you're indoors. But it's still useful to get that wide shot. Although if you do get close to an object, it just seems to fail to focus. It's definitely one for those wide shots where you're standing quite far back from whatever you're shooting. Then there's macro mode, which you can use, but the resulting color and unusual spinning blur makes it unpleasant to look at afterwards. We found results for taking pictures were actually better for close-ups if you just took the camera a little bit further away and hit the 2x zoom button on the primary camera. The colors and the sharpness and the depth of field were a lot more natural and nicer to look at. In the end, on the camera front, we'd have loved to see OnePlus have a bit more courage and not follow the trend of having lots of cameras on the back. If, for instance, the company decided to use the same sensor in both the primary and ultra-wide cameras, and then just ditched the macro and the depth sensors which really aren't needed, and produce this inconsistent result between the cameras. Now, it may not be the most exciting phone on paper, but OnePlus obviously needed to make some compromises to get this phone down to its price point, and we think there's a serious amount of good in this phone for the money. In fact, when you compare it to other phones in that sort of price range, it is one of the best, if not the best phone overall in there. With a couple of little tiny tweaks, it could be truly fantastic. Will it set pulses racing with unbeatable performance and ultra premium design? No. But does it offer a highly competitive experience for the money? Absolutely it does. As far as it goes, if I was spending £400 on a phone right now, this would be the one I would go for. I've been Cam, I'm at Cam Bunton on social media. Leave your thoughts in the comments below if you have any. If you disagree with me, also shout in the comments. Hit that like button and subscribe for more videos, and I'll see you again soon.